exploring benign violation theory, a computational humor perspective.
Welcome to the Universal Principles podcast. Today, we're diving into benign violation theory, the idea that humor arises when something feels wrong, yet simultaneously okay. I'm excited to explore this with our guest, an expert in computational humor. What's the context of benign violations in your field?
Thanks for having me. In computational humor, we're trying to build AI that can understand and even generate jokes. Benign violation theory is crucial because it gives us a framework for how machines can identify that sweet spot, the overlap between something that's a little off, but ultimately harmless. It helps us program the why behind the funny.
So it's not just about detecting incongruity, but also assessing its harmlessness. Could you explain the higher concept driving this further?
Exactly. At a higher level, benign violation is about boundary testing and norm negotiation. Jokes often push the limits of what's acceptable, and the audience's reaction determines whether that boundary shifts. This can be about taboo subjects, and the joke's success relies on that delicate balance. Think of political satire. It attacks authority, which is a violation, but in a way that's hopefully seen as benign because it's just a joke.
That makes sense, so let's bring it down to some concrete examples. How does this theory play out in real-world scenarios?
Well, a comedian crafting jokes is a great example. They're constantly walking that line, testing societal norms without crossing into offensive territory. The best comedians are masters of finding that benign violation sweet spot, or take a psychologist using humor in therapy. They might make light of a client's anxiety, but only in a way that helps them feel safe and understood. It reduces the violation feeling by creating a safe space.
Interesting, so finding that balance is key. Can you describe one more example?
Absolutely. A marketer might use benign violation theory to create an ad campaign. They could introduce something unexpected or slightly shocking to grab attention, but make sure it aligns with the brand's values and doesn't alienate potential customers. A little wrong gets you noticed, but too wrong loses customers.
Now let's zoom out. Can we relate this principle to a similar concept in a completely different field?
Sure, thinking about international relations, there's the security dilemma. It describes how a country's actions to increase its own security, like building up its military, can be perceived as threatening by other countries, leading them to react in kind and ultimately decreasing everyone's security. It's similar to how a joke can escalate if it's perceived as too violating, leading to offense and backlash.
That's a really insightful comparison. So for our listeners who want to apply benign violation theory in their own lives, what practical advice can you offer?
First, know your audience. What are their boundaries? Second, test your material. Get feedback before you commit. And third, be prepared to apologize. If you cross the line, own up to it and learn from the mistake. It's a constant learning process.
Great tips, this has been fascinating. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Just remember that humor is subjective and culturally dependent. What's funny to one person might be offensive to another. Always be mindful and respectful. Keep experimenting.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise on benign violation theory. And thanks to our listeners for tuning into Universal Principles.